Have you ever seen parents spend their entire life building a dream, only to lose everything in a single moment? This is the story of a father who spent 20 years saving his son's future and still could not save his life. But in the end, he discovered something more powerful than money, success, or even death itself. In a small town, Raman worked inside a tiny tailor shop. Every morning before sunrise, he opened the old metal shutter, sat beside his sewing machine, and stitched school uniforms, torn shirts, and worn-out clothes. The income was small. Some days people delayed payment for weeks. Some days he barely earned enough to buy groceries. But every night before sleeping, Raman looked at his little son Kiran and said the same words to his wife Lakshmi. "One day, our son will become a doctor." That dream became the center of their lives. During the day, Raman worked as a tailor. Before sunrise, while the entire town was still asleep, he rode an old bicycle delivering newspapers just to earn a little extra money. After finishing the deliveries, he would return home exhausted, wash his face quickly, and open his tailor shop again for another long day of work. Sometimes his fingers trembled from tiredness while stitching clothes. One night, Lakshmi looked at him with tears in her eyes and asked, "Why are you pushing yourself this hard?" Raman smiled softly and replied, "The day Kiran wears a stethoscope around his neck, all this pain will become worth it." Years passed. Little by little, they saved money, not by earning more, but by sacrificing more. Lakshmi stopped buying new saris. Raman continued wearing the same faded shirts for years. They avoided festivals. They skipped family trips. Sometimes they even reduced their own meals, just so Kiran could study peacefully. And Kiran understood everything. He studied harder than anyone else. He never complained, never demanded expensive things, because deep inside he knew his parents were slowly giving away their entire life for him. 20 years later, the impossible finally happened. Kiran became a doctor. The day he graduated from medical college, Raman stood in the crowd holding back tears. When he saw the stethoscope around his son's neck, he broke down crying. That night he looked at Lakshmi and whispered, "We did it." For the first time in years, they felt like life had finally rewarded them. Later, Kiran moved abroad for higher studies. The entire town spoke proudly about him. At the airport, Lakshmi could not stop crying, but Raman smiled proudly and said, "Our son is flying higher than we ever dreamed." As Kiran disappeared beyond the security gate, Raman stood there silently, with tears rolling down his face. Not tears of sadness, tears of fulfillment. For a while, life finally felt beautiful. Every Sunday, Kiran video called his parents. He would smile and say, "Dad, one day I'll bring you both here." Lakshmi even started learning a few English words just to speak with him, and Raman proudly showed Kiran's photos to everyone in town. For the first time in their lives, they felt like all their sacrifices had meaning. But slowly, things began to change. Kiran started looking tired during video calls. Sometimes he held his head while talking. Sometimes he forced a smile even when he looked weak. Lakshmi noticed it first. "Why does he look so pale these days?" Kiran laughed softly. "Just stress, Mom. I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. A few weeks later, the phone rang in the middle of the night. Raman answered casually, but as he listened, his hands slowly began to tremble. The doctors on the call explained that Kiran had suddenly fainted at the hospital where he was working. After several medical tests, they discovered a brain tumor. For a few seconds, Raman could not even breathe. It felt like the ground beneath him had disappeared. Lakshmi kept asking in fear, "What happened? Why are you crying?" But Raman could not speak, because sometimes a single sentence is enough to destroy an entire family. The doctors said surgery was possible, but it would cost more money than Raman had ever imagined. Without treatment, Kiran had only months left. Lakshmi froze in fear, but Raman did not hesitate for even 1 second. The very next day, he sold the tailor shop. A few days later, he risked losing the only house they owned just to save his son. Then he emptied every rupee he had spent 20 years saving. And when that was still not enough, he borrowed money from relatives, friends, and lenders. Everything for one chance to save his son. The surgery finally happened. For a few months, things seemed hopeful again. One evening during a video call, Kiran smiled weakly and said, "Dad, when I come back, I'll repay every debt you took from me." Raman immediately shook his head. "As long as you stay alive, that is enough for me." But happiness did not stay long. A few months later, the tumor returned. This time, even the doctors became silent. There was nothing left to try. And one quiet morning, Kiran passed away. He was still young. In a single moment, Raman and Lakshmi lost not only their son, but the entire future they had spent 20 years building. The house was gone. The tailor shop was gone. Their savings were gone. Only debt remained, and silence. After Kiran's death, the house no longer felt alive. Lakshmi stopped speaking for days. Every morning, she still placed an extra plate on the dining table by mistake, before realizing her son was gone. At night, Raman secretly cried holding Kiran's old school bag. Sometimes he replayed old voice messages just to hear his son say, "Dad," one more time. But the pain outside was nothing compared to the pain inside. The guilt slowly started eating them alive. If only we had found out earlier. If only we had more money. Maybe we should have taken him somewhere else. Parents who give everything for their child often blame themselves the most when life still takes them away, and the world around them only made it worse. Some people whispered, they spent their entire life savings for nothing. Others said, what was the use of all that struggle? Those words hurt Raman deeply every single day, because deep inside, he too believed he had failed his son. One night, Raman sat alone in darkness and asked softly, "Lakshmi, did we lose?" Lakshmi quietly walked toward an old wooden box. Inside it was a letter Kiran had written before leaving abroad. With trembling hands, she opened it, and inside Kiran had written, "Dad, Mom, I know how hard you work for me. I know every sacrifice you made. The money you saved was never just money. It was your sleep, your hunger, your youth, your entire life. You gave me 20 years of your breath so I could build my future. Even if I leave this world one day, that love will never leave me. And before anything happens to me, there is one thing I want to say. Thank you. You did not fail as parents. You loved me completely, and that is enough." By the time Raman finished reading the letter, his hands were shaking. Tears rolled silently down his face. Then he looked at Lakshmi and whispered, "Let's start stitching again." Lakshmi looked at him in confusion. Raman smiled through tears and said, "We spent 20 years stitching clothes to build our son's future. Now, let's stitch again to help other children build theirs. Not for money, not for us, for Kiran." Today, Raman owns a tiny tailor shop called Kiran Memorial Stitching Center, and every month half of his earnings go toward educating orphan children. Whenever someone asks him why he still works this hard, He simply smiles and says, "I could not save my son, but I can still protect his dream." Sometimes life does not give us the ending we prayed for. Sometimes we lose people even after giving them everything we have. But love is never wasted, because true success is not becoming rich. True success is not winning every battle. True success is loving someone so deeply that even after heartbreak, your love continues changing other lives. So if your parents are still beside you today, please value them, because somewhere in this world, there are parents living with empty rooms, quietly missing the child they once built their entire world around.